Hey my lovelies, I'm Carita and welcome back to my channel. If you know me, you probably already know that I love collectibles and minifigures. I've always been obsessed with things like little figures, character toys and art collectibles. There's just something so cool about seeing a character brought to life as a physical object. Recently I've been watching SVB_art's Pop Mart Sculpting series and it honestly inspired me so much. Seeing the process of turning a character into an actual 3D figure made me think, wait, I want to try this too. So in this video, I'm starting my journey of learning how to create my own 3D figures using Nomad Sculpt. I've never really done this before, so this is going to be a lot of experimenting, learning, and probably making a few mistakes along the way. But hopefully by the end of the series, I'll be able to turn my characters into real collectible style figures. So let's get started. Now, whilst I was recording this, I realised after completing the entire body and with my iPad about to die, it wasn't screen recording at all and I was devastated. So once my iPad was fully charged, I restarted my entire process from square one, but I'll show you how the first attempt looked. To be honest, my first attempt wasn't great. The head actually came out pretty decent and the body was okay, but the legs were a struggle. I was using tubes and the drag tool just didn't work very well with them, and the butt, yeah, let's just say it looked like she had a botched BBL. Overall, I'd probably give this model a 3 out of 10, but to be fair, this was really just me experimenting and figuring things out. So for my second attempt, I decided to change a few things. Instead of using tubes, I started using spheres instead, which made shaping the body a lot easier. I also tried smoothing the base sphere because I saw a TikTok tutorial about making models smoother so they don't look pixelated when you paint them. I'll be honest though, I had no idea what I was doing at first. I was just clicking around, testing tools and trying to figure things out. When it came to the face, I used the drag tool again to shape it. I actually liked the face from my first attempt, but I had merged all the layers together in that version, so I couldn't reuse it. I had to start from scratch, but honestly, that gave me a chance to improve it anyway. I also pulled up some Pinterest references to help guide the design, since this is actually my first time modeling a character in Nomad Sculpt. I was going to use Blender before, but I don't have much experience with it. I had used it for a uni project, but that was mostly interiors, and Blender honestly looks like an airplane control panel to me. It's just way too confusing. Nomad Sculpt, on the other hand, feels so much easier. I can just use my pen, tap a few buttons, and start shaping things right away. From there, I moved on to the neck, which was just a simple scaled down cylinder. Then I created the torso using a sphere and used the drag tool to shape the body, hips and pelvis. One thing I had changed from the first model was the shoulders. Instead of pulling them outward, I flattened them slightly to create more of a collarbone shape, which looked way cleaner. I then worked on the hip area, making some indents where the legs would go. The flattening tool didn't work very well for this, so I used a mix of the crease, move and flattening tools to carve out the shape. The chest was pretty simple, just pulling the shape out with the drag tool, and throughout the whole process, I kept checking the proportions to match how I usually draw my chibi characters. Finally, I moved on to the thighs, starting with another sphere, scaling it down, reshaping it slightly and placing it into the hip area. Once it looked right, I used the drag tool again to shape the legs the way I wanted. Another thing I wanted to make sure of when I made the first attempt with this model, I noticed the symmetry tool was not on whilst I was shaping the thighs, and noticed nothing matched and it just looked plain horrible. So I made sure that they were on correctly and I just went back in and shaped it a bit more. The rest of the process was just repeating the same steps with each other portion I made. Now, even though I said I'd try to avoid the tube tool for the legs, I succumbed to the idea again and wanted to give myself a do-over. To say the least, I got more of a hang of it, and it worked out 10 times better than when I first attempted. Now, the last few details on the model were the ears and arms. However, as I started on the ears, the legs on the model seemed to reset and I had to go back in and redo them all over again, which I was not pleased about, but it gave me room to improve it more. I did run into a few more errors at this point, with some parts joining together when I messed around a bit to try and separate the pieces without ruining the model. Arms and hands for this model were probably the easiest out of everything else I did, with me just using the tube tool again to make the entire arm and using small spheres for the hands. The entire model was basically finished. I was really happy with how this second attempt came out and made a few minor adjustments before saving the model and duplicated it to merge all the pieces together and then smoothed out the model so it was easier to paint. However, I clearly did something wrong and the entire application crashed. So I went back in and watched a quick tutorial on how to smooth out the entire model, then used the smooth tool to go back in to some of the parts that were missed. Then it was on to the part I was excited for, painting the model. I started off with the face, but it was quite pixelated, so I rewatched the tutorial as I realized I did it wrong again. The paint still came out pixelated, but it wasn't as bad as it started off with, and I was content with the outcome. I was so happy with how the face came out. Like, look how cute she is. I had to quickly pause my recording as I wanted the colors accurate and I had to write down all the hex codes I needed rather than trying to guess. And with that, my model was complete. I was so happy with the turnout considering it was my first time making a model in Nomad. By the time you're watching this, I most likely am working on part 2 of this video where I'll be making the clothes for this model. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed this video and want to continue and grow with me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye my lovelies.